Welcome to the inaugural Recess podcast. We're going to be discussing Lupe Fiasco's new album, Lasers, which is extra exciting with Lupe playing Duke in Irwin Field, a new, fresh concert venue on March 31st. My name's Kevin Lincoln. I'm the editor of Recess.
My name is Ross Green. I'm the music editor of Recess.
So, Ross, first up, I think we both can agree on the fact that this is not a rap album.
Yeah, not really. And it's hard to say how much of this is actually coming from Lupe himself and how much is coming from sort of this being his major label debut. But sonically, there's very little resemblance to his past works, to The Cool, which a lot of critics considered one of the better albums of 2008.
So can you give me let's give our listeners a little bit of a better idea of what The Cool is like, for in case they're not familiar with it.
So one of Lupe's strengths, definitely, that he's been able to showcase in his career up to now is he's really a rapper's rapper. He's a guy who really loves the art form. Word-wise, he's very clever. You'll see a lot of plays on words. You'll see a lot of puns. What happened here, I gather, is that he's really sort of all of the idiosyncrasies and all of the sort of unique wordplay that Lupe brought to the table has really been toned down and sort of neutered. And as a result, this is an album that doesn't really sound that much like Lupe. It just sounds bland.
So, my opinion about just to start right off the bat, you get this from the first track, "Letting Go," which is this very completely energy devoid chorus from someone named Sarah Green, who I'm not familiar with, produced by King David, who produces a number of other tracks on the album, and these disco strings that he brings to the table here should be banned from music altogether. It's just the raps are clumsy, the rhyme schemes are really simple. The only thing Lupe ever bothers to rhyme is the last word. You have these sort of nonsensical rhymes where he says things like, "The world is so cold. I'm glad I got these skis." It all seems to be a vehicle for these pop songs, but they're not even interesting pop songs. They're 8 bars of Lupe rapping, chorus, 8 bars, chorus, and the thing that that's my overall impression of the album.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I totally agree that the production credits here are pretty misguided. You see Kane Beats on one of these tracks, which is actually a Modest Mouse interpolation, and really it's an embarrassment to Modest Mouse and to Lupe as well. But what's interesting is that even beyond the production, which I agree, it's too slick, it's a little too poppy for Lupe. He just sounds lyrically disinterested. I mean, it's lazier, it's less engaging rapping than we've ever really seen from him before. And one thing I'm actually interested to see is how he's going to tour behind this album. I can imagine that we'll probably hear some of the early singles. "Show Goes On" is the one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
But I wonder to what extent he's actually going to be relying on older material on his tour.
Right, because there is this whole narrative with Lupe supposedly being very dissatisfied with the album, not being happy with how it turned out, not being happy with the way it went as a major label effort. I mean, the clearest archetype for this album right now is the B.O.B. record that came out, I guess last year.
Adventures of Bobby Rag.
Yeah, Adventures of Bobby Rag, which would be, B.O.B. was this pretty vaunted mixtape rapper and a guy who is thought of as pretty good chops, and then he delivered this album with singing with Rivers Cuomo and just doing all these very poppy things, and I personally thought it was a disaster, but it did really well commercially, and this Lupe album has done really well commercially, but we're not going to get too far into that here. But I was listening to this album, and the biggest sound that came to mind as a precedent was Linkin Park. And I was just so confused.
Yeah, there's a lot of that sort of nu metal influence here, and I hate to say this, but what comes to mind is Lil Wayne's Rebirth, which I reviewed last year, and is just an absolute career low point for him, and would be for Lupe as well. And I think that's probably the closest parallel. It's it's somewhat unfortunate to see a guy like this get off track, and you wonder how much longer this major label engagement is going to last, given just how poorly this album went.
And it'll be interesting because the difference between the Lupe album and and Rebirth was that, you know, Rebirth was something that Lil Wayne had kind of tossed off, whereas this album has been, you know, it was 3 years since The Cool, and also this album has done a lot better commercially than Rebirth, so it'll be interesting to see whether Lupe can turn away from it, if he chooses to turn away from it as easily. Let's talk about the lyrical content again for a little bit. So we've agreed that it's sort of the rhyme schemes are neutered. His rhyming just seems far less energetic. It's less convoluted. It's less, and this convoluted here being a good thing. It's just less inventive. And one other thing, he channels two things in the album as best as I can tell. The first is a sort of pathos and, you know, discontent with fame, which is, you know, the favorite motif in rap music and pop music right now. And he also has this sort of weird political rap that is just like so simplistic that it's almost depressing, especially on Words I Never Said, where he basically like rails against the government and just says all these things about, I think he says 9/11 was a hoax and just all of these very
Sheening it.
Yeah, it's some bizarre stuff.
Yeah, I think with regard to the latter, it's definitely a regression. We've seen Lupe come out with way more sort of involved and intelligent, conscious rap in the past, and this does appear to be a big step backwards. With regard to sort of the woe is me, Kid Cudi-esque aesthetic, it's really strange that they've paired this sort of production, which is so poppy and so upbeat, with, you know, his sort of almost sad, you know, I'm a, you know, down on my luck rapper narrative. It's almost bizarre. It's so incongruous, and you really wonder to what extent he actually had control over who's producing these tracks and sort of the way the album sounds.
Yeah, and the problem too is you especially put it up against the guys who are doing this sort of motif really well now. You know, obviously Kanye. And Kanye's album was more of a pop album than a rap album, and it set the bar pretty high for the pop rap sort of, you know. And then there's Drake's album, Thank Me Later. I mean, I'm a big fan of both those albums, but he does that way better than Lupe seems to do it here. Even Kid Cudi, who I'm not fully sold on, he at least pairs his like self-pitying, you know, saccharine lyrics with some instrumentation that's engaging or, you know, kind of worthwhile. Ross is shaking his head.
Well, I don't want to stand Cudi next to those first two, because I think the biggest difference, and this is one thing that Lupe lacks here, is both Drake and Kanye on their last two albums. Yeah, they deal with sort of this moroseness, but they also have some get up and go. You've got songs like Hell of a Life.
Yeah, they got swag.
You've got Hell of a Life on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. You've got Over on Drake's album, and these are sort of tracks where like they actually pick up the tempo and sound like they're enjoying all of the money, fame,
yeah, I mean, there's
accrued to them.
There is no swag on this Lupe album. There's like no confidence on Lasers.
Kevin loves to say swag.
I do like the word swag, but it is just. I mean, it's not fun, which is weird for a pop album. Like, it's kind of depressing when it's not depressing because you like keep thinking about '90s like
new metal,
garbage,
Fred Durst,
rock rap, yeah,
kill yourself. Yeah, you know what's going to be interesting, and this is maybe sort of where we should wrap it up, is how is this album, or how are these songs going to translate to a concert setting? What do you expect from, you know, Lupe's concert in Irwin Park, wherever the hell that is?
I mean, I expect it to be like loud as hell. You know, try and basically break every window on Central Campus with these thick synths and these kind of like crazy choruses. But I mean, songs like State Run Radio. I mean, I actually when I was listening to this, I reached for my iPod to turn it off before I stopped myself because I was reviewing the album. These songs are just, I mean, at least for me, they're not songs that make me want to get up and dance, which is what a good pop song makes me want to do, or at least get up and start singing the lyrics along with it. Like, here I just kind of want to, you almost want to sit Lupe down and be like, what's wrong? Is everything all right? So I don't know what this is going to be like in a live setting. I'm not optimistic, though.
Yeah, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, we can only hope that this sort of is a blip on the radar, one of those inexplicable, soulless sellout moments that isn't to be repeated. But, only time will tell.
Yeah, so star rating, a star rating out of 5, what would you give?
Oof, man, we don't do half stars, so I'll give it a 2.
Give it a 2?
I'll give it a 2.
Right.
If this were Pitchfork, I'd say I'd give it about a 3.1.
A 3.1. All right, I would give it a 1 out of 5. I think on a 10 out of 10, I'd probably give it like a 2-ish, but 1 out of 5. All right, that concludes this discussion. Hope you enjoy the album, and hope you enjoy the concert, which will hopefully be better than the album. All right, thanks a lot.